This is an analysis project I've been working on in CommunityViz Scenario 360. It's a very powerful analysis. It has a lot of visual components, but it's a two-dimensional view. So what I'd like to do next is look at it in 3 dimensions. Now, CommunityViz offers me several options in how to do this. I can export a scene into ArcScene, which is an extension for ArcMap. I can use the CommunityViz component called Scenario 3D, or I can make a KMZ file, which is readable by Google Earth or ArcGIS Explorer. I'd like to show you what this is going to look like in Google Earth. To look at it in Google Earth, once I have some setup, there's only one button I have to push. It's this one called Export to Google Earth. When I do, Scenario 360 wraps up a KMZ for me and launches Google Earth. What I discover is that I have all my layers and all my features from CommunityViz now displayed in Google Earth. These are overlaid on the Google Earth globe. They're in the correct geographic position, and they represent the exact same features I was working on in my analysis. Now, as I zoom in more closely, you can see that the features are actually 3D models in many cases. These are usually SketchUp models. Many are available in the Scenario 3D model library, but you can also make your own with SketchUp or get them free from shared files on the web. You can see that I've chosen trees and houses, and for some I've chosen to extrude objects, just to give some massing. I've created some custom models for myself as well. Now, one of the interesting things is that I have time scope in my Scenario 360 analysis, while Google Earth has a timeline that can read these time scope settings. I can change the year and see development progressing accordingly. Over here you can see that I'm representing a particular kind of commercial development, but I have 2 scenarios, and those are showing on the left here and here under Places. If I turn off Alternative A and turn on Alternative B, I can see their relative differences. If I want to see some of the information that Scenario 360 has generated for me, I can turn on these charts. Here's one showing how many build-out buildings there are, and here's another one showing the rate of growth in my 2 different scenarios. Now, if at any time I want to save this to my Places, I can, but I can also just use the KMZ as a file that I can share with anyone. And as I work on my analysis and make changes, if I want to update, I can simply export to Google Earth with this button again. Now, you're wondering how difficult this was to set up, and it's actually not too bad. There's another button called Google Earth Export Settings. It's a wizard, which I can work through. I tell it some basic information, and then for each layer that I'm working on, I specify some particulars, like whether I want it to appear just as a geometry, or whether I want to use 3D models, etc. And for each of these, I can either type in numbers, or, if I like, I can use dynamic attributes created by Scenario 360. That you can learn about in some of the other demos. One example is this orient attribute, which automatically tells me which way to twist the buildings so that they face the nearest road. This has been a brief introduction to 3D scenes in Google Earth using the Scenario 360 Export to Google Earth feature. You can find out much more about the Google Earth Exporter in Scenario 360 by exploring our website.